we're gonna go to. Why don't we do the other Chris in the UK? Just because that'll be confusing to do in the descriptions. Chris in the UK, you're live with Eric.
Hi there, how are you today?
Hi, doing okay. Look at that. I didn't even need to create a new lower third. I could just use the same one as last time. Um, so it says in the notes that you want to talk about belief in ghosts. Do you believe in ghosts?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
I used to believe in a lot of other things. I used to believe in many of the things you discuss in this show or people call in about, but I have sort of narrowed down my belief system in various other things, Atlantis included, to the point that I only really believe in things relating to the paranormal, but that is one that I cannot seem to get rid of or find a good reason for me, at least, to, shake off that belief.
Sure. No, that makes sense. The process of questioning your entire world is a very, very long one. And the fact that you hit points where you need more information just means you're doing it right. So I'm glad.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you called in. So I can give you kind of my view on ghosts, but I don't want to talk at you. So what was your view of ghosts and what is it now? Because then maybe we can have a more, intimate conversation about what you believe.
Of course, yeah. I mean, generally, I believe in ghosts and surrounding things, So maybe things that are negative, things that are positive. I'm not so sure about those, but yeah. I mean, generally, I believe that ghosts are just footprints in the snow or an echo. I don't believe they're necessarily sentient, but I do a lot of ghost hunting, and I've had some weird experiences that I'm finding it difficult to disconnect those experiences from, I suppose not my rational mind as such, but I'm finding that there is some sort of a dichotomy, perhaps.
Yeah.
I know that maybe I shouldn't believe, but
well, it definitely. I think I can give you a couple of tools. Because I bet you there are a couple of things that you get frustrated about that might kind of sit weird on the ghost belief. One of them is,
okay.
Do you know the whole God of the Gaps argument?
I do, yeah, that we fill in our idea of God depending on what we're unfamiliar with,
Yeah.
God going from up in the mountain to up in the sky to into space to into another dimension, etc.
Yeah, and you can make it more practical by, you can't explain why the rain falls, therefore God is doing it. You can't, and the more we learn about it, the smaller those gaps get, but they still put God in the gaps, right? What is dark matter? How do we explain, what appear to be fundamental forces of the universe? Well, it's because God is doing it. God has got his finger on the scales of reality, and that kind of a belief living in a lack of evidence is definitely something to be wary of. And I would challenge you to scratch that when it comes to ghosts, because there's a belief in a lack of evidence often. Now that doesn't explain, what some people say they've experienced, but would you agree that there are a good number of arguments for ghosts that kind of fit that category?
I think, yeah, possibly. I think it's not so much. I mean, I've been trying to learn a little bit more about the natural sciences in order to maybe, tighten some of those gaps. But
Sure.
There are definitely things that I don't understand. I've taken pictures. For example, I took a picture of what appears to be a woman in a white dress in Edinburgh Vaults. And I understand things like pareidolia, but I've shown this picture to a lot of people, and without me necessarily indicating what I think it is, they sort of, I don't know, come to similar conclusions a lot of the time.
I can understand that. A lot of it has to do with priming, though. Um,
Mm.
I don't want it to sound like I'm waiting for my turn to talk. I just have a lot of things that I want to throw out there. So,
Yeah, of course, by all means.
yeah.
That's why I called in to
Oh,
hear your advice and
okay.
opinion.
I just the next thing I'm going to say doesn't have to do with the picture you just took, or that you took that you're talking about. I just kind of I want to make sure that I get a bunch of the stuff, that way you can think about it, look at it, right? Um,
Of course.
okay, so you know what pareidolia is, which is fantastic. We talked about God of the Gaps, which is great. There's another piece that a lot of people don't talk about, even in skeptic circles, because they don't think it's relevant, but it's incredibly relevant, and that is identity. If you see yourself as the kind of person who does this, right? You go ghost hunting. That's a hobby. That's something people do. And there's a motivation there
That's true.
to kind of hold those things up. And I am not saying it's intentional, but there is a motivation there to kind of hold up certain ideas when it comes to propping up those hobbies. And so I don't know how to tell you don't go ghost hunting, but I would say keep that in mind that there's a bias there that you're going to need to account for because the bias is in favor of ghosts.
Mm.
Yeah.
That is a good point.
Now,
That is a good point.
now, let's talk physics for a second, okay? And then last one is
Okay.
psychology, and then I'll need to get on to the next call. But first, physics. When
Of
you
course.
when you say a footprint, right? Something left behind. Are ghosts subject to gravity? Like, could a ghost fall down a well?
No.
Okay. So if ghosts aren't tethered to, the world the way we are on a planet that's shooting through space. We're not just shooting around the sun. We are shooting around the sun and through space. Where a person would have died, that particular, spatial temporal, thing is
Yeah.
millions of miles away from where we
Long
are.
gone.
Yeah, even if you're standing in front of the same house, if you're not tethered to the planet the way everybody else is, that's why time travel is not possible, right? What if you travel 200
Wow.
years back in time? You're going to be right here, but that doesn't mean there's going to be a planet here for you to be on. And so,
Wow.
right? Isn't that
Yeah, I have never
disappointing?
even considered that at all.
Yeah, it's super disappointing. Um,
No, I mean, I would rather know the truth than
yeah,
even if the truth isn't what I thought it was. I would rather know it than you know
yeah.
be happy with something that isn't true.
Well, or now don't discount the idea of being happy with it and recognizing it for what it is.
Mm.
I've talked to atheist skeptics who know there are no ghosts, who've come to that conclusion and also really enjoy the hobby.
Mm.
The love of my life finds a lot of value in tarot. They don't believe anything supernatural about it, and so don't think that you're necessarily giving anything up. You're just learning more about it. So the last one I want to give you is psychology. So
Okay. I've
I
studied psychology a little bit.
okay. So before I'm making an assumption here. When you talk about ghosts, do you think that there are emotions tied to them, like that there could be anger or sadness or depression or fear or anything like that?
Yeah, I suppose I believe that when they died, perhaps there was such a strong emotional response that it's somehow left an echo.
I I think that is a very poetic idea, and it's something that I've definitely heard and kind of wrestled with and thought about. But the thing is, you can't have emotion without a brain experiencing that emotion. Like I can feel something very, very strongly, but I can't put it in a jar, you know? Even with a
Mm.
brain, that's not possible. But without a brain, that's doubly impossible. Um, if I were to take a look at what is required to make a feeling happen, right? I would be looking at all of these different brain chemicals and what they do and how they interact. And so, if I were to talk about Um, Depression, that has a lot to do with serotonin. But if you remove the serotonin and the parts of the brain that like accept the serotonin, there's just
Yeah.
nothing there. And so if we look at it that way, then all of a sudden depression is actually not something a ghost can have, because whatever a ghost has, it's got to be without a body. So let's take depression off. And then we start pulling the thread on the sweater, and that also takes care of kind of anger and sadness. That takes care of those emotions that require a thinking agent, because we live in meat space. You know, we
I get what you mean.
yeah. If you don't have the meat to have the feeling, it can't exist without it. And
What would you
go
say
ahead.
to people who? Sorry.
No, go for it.
On you go. I was just saying, I talk to a lot of people, and I'm not sure I either agree or disagree. I tend to favor I tend to be more on the side of thinking that all that is thought or consciousness comes from the brain. A lot of people are of the opinion, and I was once too, that there is something more to consciousness than what can be found in the brain.
You know,
What is your thought on that?
I disagree, and I'm disappointed by it. It would be awesome if there was some supernatural piece that could survive after I die. The idea of not existing and not being able to, potentially live out my dreams and live my best life before I die is a scary thing. And so the idea that, there could be something that lives on is a very, very attractive prospect. But if I look at it the way it, just facts on the ground in front of me, I can't come to that conclusion without just saying it's wishful thinking. And so, and I think I've got one more. I think I could come up with these all day, but I have so many people on the line. I feel really, really bad.
I understand. I totally get it.
Yeah, but I want to give another one. A lot of ghost jargon comes around a fundamental misunderstanding of physics. Waves and energy are things that we understand to a degree and can measure, right? Like we understand the section of radiation that we can see. We have the visible light spectrum.
Yeah.
And we harness waves at different frequencies to do things like heat our food or make telephone calls.
Indeed, microwaves, things like that.
Yeah. None of those things are emotions, right? An emotion or a thought, those are complex interactions in your brain. And a complex interaction in your brain is not a wavelength. But a lot of people will treat it that way, or rely on technology that measures wavelengths, but not understand how it's interacting with the environment, or possibly misattribute the readings that they find, because you can't scan for disembodied minds. If you could, I have so many religious callers I want to talk to, who say that they're disembodied. It's just, and it's not because it's just because that's not how wavelengths work, right? They get really wide, they get really small, and we have a pretty good understanding of them. So if anybody tells you, oh, well, I'm picking, it's energy, everything's energy. Bullshit. A lot of it is chemicals.
I have heard that many, many times.
Yeah. Don't tell me my brain is just energy. It's chemicals too. I'm on antidepressants for a reason. Don't tell me there's not physical pieces in there. You need those. And those complex interactions, it's something more wonderful. It's something more spectacular. What an incredible real life version of a miracle to see those complex interactions in the brain that cause feelings and things like that to happen. It's not just a wavelength. Yeah,
the truth is stranger than fiction in some cases.
It is. And how dare people think that you need to focus it down to just a wavelength to feel wonder for it. I think that's so much less awe in that than there is in the reality of the complexity of our brains.
Hmm.
So I
Would
hope.
you say that consciousness, would you say that that originates in a specific part of the brain, or does it exist in all parts simultaneously?
I think consciousness is, when we talk about it, we often miscategorize it. I think consciousness is the basket of things that are going on in our brain. It's the it's all of the interactions of receiving sensory data, making sense of that data, and relating that data to prior experience. All of those things that we're doing to understand the world around us, we just kind of put it in a big basket and call it consciousness. And because of that, it's really difficult to actually talk about meaningfully, because you can remove some stuff, you can add some stuff, but until we get
Yeah,
more specific and concrete, it's too amorphous to talk about meaningfully.
I understand that.
Yeah,
And I appreciate you having this talk with me.
absolutely.
I perhaps need to learn more about neuroscience and things like that.
And follow your passion. Don't do it because you think you have to. If you kind of have that understanding, then at least you won't be taken advantage of by people who fooled themselves into thinking otherwise. But other than that, if you want to go ghost hunting, go ghost hunting. There's not like the atheist police that are going to show up at your door and be like, no, go have fun with your life, but just, you know, endeavor to learn more about it and be more informed about the world around you. And that sounds like it's exactly what you're doing. And I admire that.
I appreciate that. I've been trying to learn more about things like physics and things, although that's quite maths intensive. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
I will certainly try to just keep expanding my knowledge, and I do find these things interesting.
awesome. Awesome. Well, take care of yourself and good luck on your journey, Chris. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too. That is two Chris's from the UK, and I am so glad that I talked to both of them.